if you want to build something that's going to build long-term residual income, something sustainable, something that you feel is worth the time and effort that you're going to put into your brand, to these connections, to social media. Like if you're going to put time into something, don't you want it to be worth it? Well, Bob's going to talk about today, I'm very excited about this conversation, how to really turn likes or followers or comments into leads. Because I think a lot of us, we struggle with social media, we struggle with the algorithm, the content we need to create, and Bob is one of the best, not just because he's done it, right? He's actually built very successful network marketing businesses, and then he retired and became a coach, but he's a very good teacher.
Most people that we work with in our business, when they get somebody that comments on a post that's specifically about what they do, that feels like a pretty easy path to a conversation, right? And somebody's asking about your products, it's not that hard to sell to them. But when we look at social interaction as a whole on a macro level, most people, the majority of the interaction they get, it's usually on the content that's not related to their business. And I know that for most people in our profession, this is where it gets really frustrating, right? Because we spend we finally get the courage to put ourselves out there in a post or a video, and we share this really well thought out, vulnerable message, sharing all of our deepest fears and how we've grown. And we post it and it gets like 2 likes, right? Like your mom likes it and the one person in your downline and your upline likes it. And then the next day you post a picture of your cat and it gets like 100 likes and 20 comments, right? And this is the thing that plagues all of us. And so most people, that does not mean anything to their business. So we find ourselves when we look at the landscape of social media today, engagement rates have plummeted over the last 3 years, especially on the 2 primary platforms, Facebook and Instagram. It is so much harder today to get attention and to get engagement. It's not impossible. It doesn't mean it's still not an important part of the business. But most people in our profession, they're just not people are not coming to them. They're not liking, they're not commenting, they're not messaging anymore. And so what I see is that the average person in this profession finds themselves in this really difficult place where the last 2 to 3 years, it's all been inbound selling, right? People are coming to you, asking you about your products. Customers are asking
easy money.
Easy money, right? It doesn't take a lot of sales skills if somebody's asking you. But here's the big shift that we've seen in the profession over the last year, is the shift has gone from inbound to outbound. And so when we look at engagement rates are down, meaning that there are less opportunities for us to start these obvious conversations. People are not coming to you the way that they were 2 to 3 years ago during COVID. And so people find themselves, they don't know how to, they don't have people to talk to about their business. And so what's happening is they're either resulting to flat out cold prospecting, cold messaging strategies, and they're doing it in a very transactional way that completely turn people off, or they're doubling down on content, thinking, well, I just have to create more. I got to do more platforms. But the problem is is that content is still passive and relying on inbound. And so the argument that I'm going to make, is that the number one thing you need to do today is you need to be more proactive. You need to be more proactive in your selling strategy, which means you need to learn how to start a conversation with someone that actually creates an opportunity for your business. And for a guy like you and I, this feels almost funny to say, because I think one of the advantages that we had is we came up in this profession before social media existed. Yeah. So we weren't afforded the ability to be, let's be real, a little lazy at times and just rely on content. And that's not fair, because look, if you are the 1% of people that still today is consistently building a business just off of content, I'm not diminishing the value or the hard work of that. But the truth of the matter is 99% of people in this profession today will never be that. And so what they're trying to do is they're trying to model their business and what they do off of the 1% of the influencers that have the big followings, thinking that that's the formula for success. And it's actually not. It's a formula for failure. And so we had an advantage because we didn't have social media.
Right.
When I tell people some of the things that I used to have to do to find people to talk to, they look at me like I'm crazy, right? Like walking through the mall and randomly prospecting people, like just going up to random strangers that I don't even know because somebody had a suit on, and having to start up a conversation and quickly try to, pique someone's interest. But here's what happened is we learned how to sell.
Yeah.
And we kept that skill set with us. And then we entered into this age of marketing, which was the last like 5 to 7 years. And marketing is still important, but I'm telling you, we are going back into a season of selling. Mm-hmm. And so like the people that really know how to sell, how to start a conversation, how to ask the right questions, so let's go back to my example. You get a like on a picture of your cat. So you're standing on this island over here. Okay. Somebody liked my cat picture. And you want to get to this island, which is, I would love to be able to use that as a reason to share my business or find out if they're interested. But I have no idea how I can bridge without just being a complete train wrecking the conversation, car salesman approach, like blowing them out of the water. And so they don't do it. Right. And so I say there is a way to do that in a way that is authentic, that is organic. But in order to do that, you have to increase your sales conversation skills. And so what we're going to be doing is we're going to be teaching people ways to start and have conversations that can create opportunities for your business, because that's where it really is today.
Could you also talk about your philosophy on like the marketing piece as well? Because I think a lot of us, and even, me at one point, I was in that same boat where it's just like all about attraction marketing, right? And it was great, especially back in like the 2016, 17, 18, 19. But at some point, it's like, you got to talk about your products. But how do you do that if you don't want to be a salesperson? And I love what I saw you talk about recently in this regard. And I think it's so freaking important. Can you talk about that conversation about the marketing, attraction marketing, curiosity marketing, what that looks like?
When you look at where the profession was, they were so far to the left, meaning that it was, they were treating social media like it was just a cash register, and it was just a sales promotion. It was like, because remember, the advice used to be post 5 to 7 times a day. And there were people posting 5 to 7 times a day about their products and crushing it on social media. And when I think about when I first started selling courses and coaching, I could go to my Facebook profile and just put up an image of a training that I would like, I'm doing a workshop. I could just throw an image up of that workshop and I would make 50 sales off of that thing, right? And so we got a little bit greedy and we got a little lazy. And so what happened was more people started to do it. And then all of a sudden, society in general started being like, wait a minute, my inbox is getting spammed and there's more. So as a coaching contingency, we said, all right, you guys, you got to stop this. And so for us, we're like, just don't do it anymore, right? Never talk about your company, never talk about your products. It was like, this big secret. And I could remember I would be coaching people. I'd be like, they'd have the name of their company in their profile. And I would like they did the worst thing in the world. You got to take that out of your profile. You can't have pictures. It's like, and that was the advice for a while, the curiosity, attraction marketing phase. And so, it wasn't bad advice and it helped a lot of people. But here's the thing that's changed. So I've been spending a lot of time really diving into the economic data and specifically data on consumer behavior. And so here's one interesting thing. There's one stat that keeps getting reported. 7 out of 10 consumers today say that the number one way that they want to find out about new products is social media. They want to find it out through people that they know, like, and trust, actual users of the products, right? Not influencers. Big brands are not paying influencers anymore. They're looking for microfluencers, which are actual customers and real people that have used a product and experienced it. Go Google user-generated content. UGC, user-generated content, is the biggest buzzword in social media marketing today. User-generated content is what we're talking about. It's content promoting a product, not from the business that's selling it, but the actual user. This is how people want to find out about new products today. Now, this should perfectly align itself with our profession, because yes, I get it. We are selling and we do have a business, but we also are product users. And so this should be like a grand slam home run for us. So First off, to give someone advice, you should never talk about your products and content is somebody that is operating from an old, outdated playbook. They're either trying to sell you something that is promoting with their agenda. So they have a financial agenda why they're telling you to do that, because they're going to sell you a digital marketing course on funnels or attract something, right? Or they're just out of touch with what's actually happening today. It doesn't mean they're a bad person. And so, because if you're not talking about your products, then you're not leveraging the most important concept in content today, which is what we're talking about. But here's where we get it wrong as a profession. This is a really good analogy. So I want you to imagine, you're watching Instagram stories of a friend of yours, and she's posting about how this experience she had at a restaurant that just opened up in your hometown. And she's got pictures of the food. She's leaving and she's, this was the best experience ever. Look, if you're looking to go out and have a great meal, you have to go to this restaurant, right? And so you see that. Now, if you and your husband or wife are wanting to go out to dinner next week and you don't already have a reservation, I would argue there is a very good chance you will book a reservation at that restaurant for the main reason that it was recommended to you by a friend. Now, I do this all the time. There'll be restaurants that open up in our area, and I'll always go to Yelp and I'll read the reviews or Google reviews, and there'll be good reviews, but I'm like, I don't know these people. Or,
right.
Is the business buying reviews? Like, I don't know how to put stock in that. But if somebody I know tells me it's good, I'm going to go there, right? So this is user-generated content. Here's where we get it wrong as a profession. Same analogy. Same scenario. Best restaurant ever. You got to go there, except at the very end, there's one extra post. And by the way, here's my booking link. Make sure when you book at the restaurant, you click my link and go through my account so I can get paid when you eat there. Now, I promise you the majority of the viewers that are watching this. Now, if you know that person really, really well, right, you would say, okay, she's going to get paid, whatever. It's still going to be good. But most people will immediately discount that recommendation because, no wonder you want me to go there. So what just happened was you're no longer a user in the viewer's eyes. You're a salesperson. Right. And so this is where we go wrong. Now, what the thing is the people that tell you don't post about your products, they don't think they're giving you bad advice, because what they see is every time you post about your products, you're always trying to sell in the content. I argue there's a way to talk about your products and share the products without actually trying to sell them, which is actually one of the most important things you can do today. And so that's why we give the number one piece of advice that we give people is this: you share the products and content, you sell them in conversations. Stop selling in your content. Stop asking people to buy. Stop including links every single time you talk about them, because you are turning people away from you.
And it's amazing how effective it can be. Once you build up that know, like, trust, which you talked about, you build up that personal brand. And guess what? You can recommend things that you don't make money on. Bob, you just said it, right? You recommend restaurants, not because you have an agenda, not because you get paid, but because you genuinely loved your experience. The food was great. The service was great, whatever that is. And this is part of becoming an influencer, right? And we're not saying an influencer, you got to have hundreds of thousands of followers and then you're an influencer. Literally, you could have a following of 50 people and have influence over those 50 people because you're sharing things you're using, you're telling stories. And I know a lot of your workshop is going to cover this. And it really is amazing how, and you mentioned this, how someone can post something and get crazy engagement. It's like with their kids or the date night they just had. But then those same people don't comment on their reels or don't ask them about their products. But I was having a conversation with a leader earlier today, and she was just blown away by the fact that she never did this in the beginning. And just recently, she started doing exactly what you're talking about, proactively reaching out to these followers, these likes, these comments, these leads. She was blown away by how some of these people were totally interested, but they never asked. They never raised their hand. And when I look at a lot of my top sellers, when I look at a lot of the people that are very consistent in bringing in new customers, they're consistently making a lot of money selling product, they do such a great job of talking about the products in a fun way. They have a passion for it. They've built up stories, not just their own story, but sharing other people's stories and talking about the benefits. And these are the things that I think back in the day would be considered spammy, or it'd be like, oh, you're an infomercial for your company. But if you do it the right way, not only is it effective, it's duplicatable. You know, a lot of people are like, oh, my business is down, this is down. It might be down. Yeah, the economy. Yeah, all these things. But guess what? People are still buying. People are still spending money. And I know this because I was just at the airport yesterday and it was freaking packed. It's packed every time I'm there. People are still spending money. Our organization last month, put in 5,000 new customers. Now, maybe a year ago it'd been 10,000 in the same month, but it's still 5,000 people that said, I want those products. So are people still buying? Yes. Are people still spending money? Yes. Are people still on social media? Yes. How are you going to stand out? That's what this workshop's going to cover. So Bob, could you maybe talk a little bit about your philosophy, what the workshop's going to talk about in that regard? Because I do think this is powerful and it's something that all of us have to embrace. You cannot sit back twiddling your thumbs waiting for people to ask you about your products and opportunity.
We're going to dive deep into like just what's happening in the world today. And so I'm going to share lots of statistics, economic statistics. We're going to look at industry statistics, consumer behavior. But what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to share 10 predictions for the profession over the next 2 to 3 years based off of all this data. And I'm going to teach you specific things that I think you must start doing right now today to position your business to win over the next 2-3 years. Here's one of the biggest arguments that I'm going to make is unless you had a business before 2008, right now today is the single greatest opportunity you have had in your lifetime to position your business for long-term success. And I'm going to tell you why. Because you are going to have access to a level of person that, because of what's happening in the economy today, all the uncertainty, is going to be open to something non-traditional like what we do that we haven't seen since the last recession that we were in 2008 and 2009. See, I'm gonna tell you what happened in COVID. We had these COVID business babies that joined just because they were bored and they had money and they had nothing to do. But the second it actually started getting hard and it required real work and commitment, they didn't have it and they left and they quit. And so that's the reason what we saw is we saw this big boom and then we saw it fall off a cliff. See, what you have access to today are leaders. And so here's what I know is the foundation of long-term success: good people, committed people. And so here's what's interesting. I'll share just a couple of stats that I think, because for me to just tell you should be more proactive, you should be sharing your business, because a lot of you are not even sharing your business anymore, which to me is the greatest tragedy, because people have left and you've lost confidence and you said, I must have did something wrong. And you're like, I don't know what to say today to get people. You're not even talking about your business. And right. So like, here's the truth of the matter. If you ever have had a reason to, it's now. And so here's what's interesting about this recession. There is a term being tossed around. They're calling this a rich session. So here's what they mean by that. In a typical recession, the bottom 20% of the households are the ones that are hit the hardest, the lowest income households. Over the last 3 years, what the data shows is that the lowest 20% of households, their net worth has increased by 43%. Now, that's because of all the government stimulus, unemployment, stuff like that. Now, here's what's interesting. We just passed for the first time in history over $1 trillion in credit card debt. And there was just an article in Fortune magazine last week that credit card defaults are at its highest rate since the Great Depression, because interest rates are rising. Credit card balances are higher than they've ever been. So more and more people are unable to meet the minimum payments. And so they're defaulting. They've been living their life on credit. It costs the average American household $700 more a month to live the same life today that they did 3 years ago. And so we are, there is going to be like, what hasn't hit the fan yet for us as an economy in the US. But here's what's interesting. The group of people that have been hit the hardest are the top 20% of households. Their net worth has decreased by 10% in the last year. And there was an article written in LinkedIn, the majority of the jobs being eliminated are 6-figure plus salaries. The tech sector has been decimated with job losses, but it's not just tech. Every company, you pick any company, any industry, they're cutting jobs by the tens of thousands. And so what does that mean for us? Well, what it means is it's the perfect storm of opportunity, because you've got these people that are successful, influential leaders. They're established in their careers. They are afraid and they don't know what's happening. And guess what? If you learn how to talk to them the right way, and here's the problem. You know some of these people, but you want to know what happens? They go to your social media and they see what you're doing and saying, and you turn them away before you even get a chance to talk to them. So that's why content is an important first piece. But when you're in a conversation, John, one of our early mentors said this, I don't remember who it was, but I was taught this early, that language is one of the currencies of your business. If you learn how to elevate the language that you use when you're talking to someone about what you do, and you learn how to really paint the big picture vision for the opportunity that exists in this profession beyond where you are and your results, that's the way you build a big business, right? You sell people on the dream. And so you have to learn how to fundamentally talk to people differently today if you're going to take advantage of this. Now, I know what comes up. Somebody says, well, Bob, I'm not successful. I don't make the big money. It doesn't matter, because you want to know what? Good quality prospects will never discount an opportunity because you haven't been successful. They don't base their decision on your results or lack of results. If you share something with them that they take the time to look at and they think it's a good opportunity, they could care less how much money you're making, right? They're just going to say, okay, why don't you get me in touch with somebody that is making money and I'll go start working. But guess what? They're in your downline.
Yeah, exactly.
So we got to get over ourselves and we got to get over our lack of success. And we have to realize that there's an opportunity today that most people have never seen before in their business. But here's the thing. I say all that to say this. These people are not going to come to you. They're not scrolling Facebook looking for side gigs and side hustles. They don't want to be an influencer. They don't give a you-know-what about that stuff. They haven't been building a following and creating content, but they are some of the strongest prospects that you will ever see in your business. I also have a bone to pick. There are so many people in our profession today. Their primary recruiting strategy is just targeting other network marketers, which I think is so short-sighted in what you do, because the opportunity to recruit and build a team is 10 times bigger with people that have never done anything like this than it is for you to just keep trying to recruit the same people that just keep going company to company because nothing they do works because they never actually learn how to do it the right way.
In reality, some of the most successful people are the most open-minded. That's how they became successful. But like you said, they're not on social media checking out side gigs. That's such a good point.
And they're not going to reach out to you. You have to go create that. When I think about one of the companies that I built, one of our biggest organizations in our business was a local business owner. His name was Mark, and you remember Mark. He owned an entire chain of auto collision centers all over the state. Like an ultra successful guy. He came to us through his tattoo artist.
Wow.
That the only reason why he even took the time to look at the business is because he was getting a tattoo from the guy the next week, and he didn't want to tick him off by not coming to his meeting. So that was the only reason why he came. He joined on the spot and crushed it. And listen, the person that introduced him never did much more than just introduce Mark, but he introduced Mark and wound up getting paid on tens of thousands of customers. And I have so many different stories like that. And so, but the point is that exists in your network. And so, John, I'll make one final argument for why being more proactive is important. I want to go back to something we talked about earlier. I remember, I'm going to just assume that most of your viewers, they're all in on content, right? Yeah. They're going live, they're doing stories, they're doing reels, they're on TikTok, they're all in on content, which you should be, by the way. Okay. But I'm going to make the argument that if you're all in on content, but you're not really being proactive about reaching out every day, you are wasting your time. Yeah. Because what content does is it nurtures your audience and community. Every time you create a piece of content, it's making a relational deposit in the account of everybody that sees the content. Now, here's what's interesting about content. If you look at the analytics really closely, so there's different types of engagement on social. There's the visible ones, which are likes and comments. But then there's the ones that are not quite as visible. There's impressions and reach. So when you look at reach is how many people actually saw the post. Impressions is how many times the post was actually watched. So typically when you look at impressions and reach are usually bigger by a factor of 10. So meaning if you get, let's say you got 100, you had 100 views, that there's usually the reach and the impressions are usually much greater than that. And so why this is important is because what it's an indication of is this, that the impact that you make through your content transcends so much larger than just the interaction on the post. And so I first discovered this when I first started going live. I would remember that I would go out and I'd be in a social situation and I would see people that I hadn't seen in a while. And I remember the first time it happened to me, I had a guy that I knew and he said, "Hey man, I just wanted to tell you, your videos have been so helpful." And so this came as a surprise to me because I'm like, I had no idea he was watching my videos.
Yeah, never comment, never likes. Yeah.
Never comment, never like. And I'm like, oh, and then it would happen again and again. And then one time I had somebody tell me, he said, I know I'm not in MLM, I'm not in network marketing, but I've taken some of the stuff that I've learned from you and I've implemented it in my job and I've actually become a better manager in my job. And like this started happening over and over again. And so what it started making me realize is I'm like, wait a minute, like I'm missing the boat here. Like I remember I would judge the success of a post by if it just got likes or comments. And what I wasn't taking into consideration was the bigger picture of the value that I was putting into the marketplace and into my community and my network. And so what we do is we urge our clients, start conversations. You will be amazed at when you start doing this, not just people that have interacted, but just starting conversations with people every day, right? And so we teach this to our clients and they are absolutely amazed at when they start doing that. Like I had 2 clients of ours in one day completely separately share this experience with me. They sent a message just to open a conversation up. And the response back, unprompted, was basically, "I need you to help me. Tell me about what you do." Like unprompted. And they were both like, I didn't even know they were watching my videos. And so like, to me, that's it. Most people are not going to reach out to you. Yeah. And so what we have to do is we have to make sure that if we're leaning into content, you got to lean into selling. I say it's a 50-50 split at worst. And so that might mean post less and actually start more conversations. And so I'm going to literally in this workshop, I'm going to teach you this entire framework for a conversation, actual things you can do and say to get the attention of higher quality prospects. And I'm going to tell you right now, most of you, when I teach it to you, you're going to start feeling anxiety because you're going to be like, I could never imagine myself saying that because it's so far different from anything you've ever done. But what I want to point out to you is what you've done has gotten you the results that you have today. So in order for you to step your game up, in order for you to recruit better people, you need to reinvent yourself in the way that you talk to people. And so that's what we're going to do is we're going to teach you that in the workshop.
Right. And then, imagine if your whole team was on this workshop. Imagine if your whole team started recruiting up. Like if I look at my business today, it's not that many people that are like, leaders, right? There's just a handful. Like you can literally build a multi-million-dollar business by identifying those types of people. You don't need thousands of A players. You don't even need hundreds of A players. If you get some quality people in your business, I am telling you, everything can change. So I'm excited about this workshop. It's mylifestyleacademy.com/elite. So get registered.